Welcome to Inside the 87s, your home for updates of one of the top junior hockey programs in the EHL, located in the hockey hotbed of New Jersey, where hockey players are molded for the next level, the 87 way.
Hello, fans, and welcome to week 2 of Inside the 87s. My name's Anthony DiPaolo, and I'm joined by Chris Russo. And for this episode, we're going to shine the spotlight on Chris, our rinkside reporter. He spent about a season and a half with the 87s. He joined us in the middle point of the 2020-2021 season. And Chris, first things first, we're both Seton Hall guys, although you came in right after I had left, but the Seton Hall connection is there. And I still remember that phone conversation talking to you and then talking to head coach Adam Hooley to float the idea of getting a rinkside reporter, because Adam told me he had the wireless microphone, and since then it has really been a bolster to our 87s broadcast. What was your initial reaction when you kind of realized that you'd be doing work rinkside for this team?
Well, yeah, the funny thing was, so I graduated Seton Hall May of 2020. Bad time. I had an opportunity. We were probably going to go do some March Madness games. I was supposed to be on the call I'd never done play-by-play in the Garden, or I'd never called the game in the Garden, even though I've been going there for years. I was supposed to do play-by-play for Seton Hall and I believe Xavier for the semifinal the day everything shut down. And so I never got that opportunity, and we got robbed of a lot of things, as everybody did. And believe me, there were far worse things. But eventually, it's like 6 months after graduation. I'm just trying to find stuff to do. I started doing my podcast probably very early November. It was the day after the World Series ended. And of course, things have been pushed back. And so it was around the same time that you called. I had your number. We'd met once, and you had me do a couple of 87s games, a couple of Titans games, I believe, as well. And you were always so generous to the guys at WSOU, or the people at WSOU and the people at Seton Hall, whenever you needed some help. But so there was that. And then I had your number. And so you said, I could use some help getting down there. We live near, close to each other, and we'll have somebody do the rinkside, and you could drive me down, because you, again, you're not a driver, et cetera, et cetera.
It's a work in progress.
Yeah, well, you're getting there, whatever. It worked out fine. But and of course, nobody wanted to take public transit at that time. Some people are still hesitant about taking public transit. So you said we'll do this game, et cetera, et cetera. I did the first game. We figured it out pretty quickly. I will reiterate that I did not know I had the job full time until the 87s tweeted it out. I had no inkling of an idea that I was getting this job full time until I had probably done a game or maybe two, and then there's a few days after that, and then I look and I see, oh, I got a job. Okay, well, that's great.
It was around Thanksgiving. I actually remember this. It was around Thanksgiving, and Adam had posted graphics thanking every staff member. So I was a part of it. And then you got a picture of you, and the graphic for you came up. And I remember you texting me with the link to that tweet where you said, oh, I guess they want me back here, full time. And I just remember doing the first broadcast, because actually, let's backtrack just real quick. 2019-2020 season, when I was still working with the Titans, I had someone else working as a rinkside reporter back in Middletown, and that broadcaster's name was Joe Sindoni. And I told him basically, Chris, you remember for the women's basketball games at Seton Hall, we'd operate by the hand signals.
Yes, sir.
For the halftime interviews. So I went by that same system, and credit to Joe Sindoni, who will be calling EHL games again this year for some of the newer teams. He did a good job. And Adam Hooley's stepson, Jake LaRusso, was on the Titans, so Adam was watching that game. And when we were talking about it, he had told me, I really like this idea. I don't know why you guys didn't keep doing it. And that way, for us, it was a real easy sell. And when he was listening back to the game, I think I remember him saying something like, wow, like this really boosted our broadcast. And he was impressed. So for him, it was a no-brainer to keep you on.
Yeah. So in a way, the pandemic ended up, it had a lot of, really a lot of us grew up because of the pandemic. It was an unfortunate kind of quick and slow thing. And it's been so tough to find jobs for, myself, for other people, that this kind of got me into it relatively quickly. It made me grow up a little bit. And, it's because of the pandemic that this actually happened. So it was kind of a blessing in disguise that something good, let's really re-clarify. Something good came out of it. And
Yes.
Adam and Matt and the whole organization got behind this idea. They got behind you. They put the right people in because they are the right people, and they got me in, and I suppose I'm the right person. So
you are.
yeah, well, okay. So anyway, that's how it worked. We got in. I'm so appreciative to them, and just to be where we are, to think that we and to think now that we've called games for now a championship team at 2 different levels is after. And I like to clarify, just for my time and a half pay, that I've been there essentially 2 years. I'm going to take more than the year and a half. I just want to point that out now.
Yeah, I mean, November is still pretty much the start of the season.
It's probably like 2/3 of the way.
But I want to kind of segue into some moments that you've experienced at ice level. I know you've always kind of described to people you're like Pierre Maguire when he was doing ringside reporting for NBC. You just have more hair.
Yeah.
But that first game, it was against New York Apple Corps. There were some misconducts handed out, and the Apple Corps bench found itself without a coach. Now, Chris, I'm sure you remember that story very well. The floor is yours.
Yeah. Quick aside, first off, Pierre Maguire, some people do not realize, grew up partially in Montreal, grew up partially here in Bergen County, went to Bergen Catholic, which is nearby us. My father, my uncle, my cousin all went to Bergen Catholic. I just want to point that out. But regardless of hair, he's a good-looking man. So, so there were some, as I go into my ringside reporter, discrepancies between members of the Apple Corps and members of the Apple Corps and the officiating crew. And so, it's funny, I didn't even really remember for a little while that this was my first game. John Falcone, who is kind of rotates as he's an assistant coach, but he also does a lot of the scorekeeping. He's sometimes he's on the bench, sometimes he's not. Yeah, but he's very important to the organization. He's kind of a jack of all trades. And he's actually even a year younger than I am, I believe, a year or two younger than I am. And so he took over for the Apple Corps behind the bench in that game because I believe did they only have one coach? Is that what it was?
I don't know if they even had any coach, or maybe
no, they had one.
Wasn't it a parent that also volunteered to fill in?
It's possible, but obviously that parent was not as qualified because John Falcone secured his first EHL win as a head coach. And that is why I still refer to John Falcone occasionally on air as New York Apple Corps head coaching legend, John Falcone. He's still, you could argue in many ways, he's got to have the best winning percentage in the history of the franchise as a head coach. He's probably the best head coach I've ever had, in some ways at least. Not in terms of longevity, but just consistency. I'd go with John Falcone.
The brightest candles burn the shortest.
Yeah, I'll go with that.
Tell us a little more about some of the unique things you have experienced as a ringside reporter. So it could be anything between plays where you've had such a unique view of seeing unfold as opposed to being up in the broadcast booth, players that you may have talked to, because I know you're usually in the penalty box for the 87s. You're right next to the bench, and sometimes you have the goaltenders in there with you, or we'd have to be careful and sanitize some of this, but maybe some chirps that you've heard between players.
Yeah, so that's probably the biggest one, and the most enjoyable part of my job, I think, is hearing players curse at each other. It's and just finding more creative ways to curse at each other. It's so fun, and that's why I love hockey so much, and that I'm barely even being sarcastic there, actually. But yeah, that's something you always see with guys like Pierre Maguire, or people like Pierre Maguire, and now Ray Ferraro, but the difference is, or if we're watching a game around here, whether it's Bryce Salvador or not really John Giannone anymore, more Dave Maloney really, but people between the bench, it's usually they have a live mic. That's the difference. We don't have I've got a mic, I've got a wireless mic, turns on and off. But the difference is, production crew can also turn it down. But yeah, you hear a lot of different things. a lot of the stuff, it's sanitize is a great word, especially in the midst of the pandemic. I think to say that, but yeah, we really had to keep it. Viewer discretion was advised. I think just to try to keep players from doing that, and not even just that, during interviews. I think we also remember Kyle Fulkerson and that whole thing, and then he becomes a hero and wins the next game when he made before that he had made a little bit of a snafu while speaking.
To paraphrase, well, this is the first series against the Pro Tech Junior Ducks, so this is a while before his heroics against the Connecticut Chiefs in the wild card game. To paraphrase, he said, I'm going to warn. He warned you. He warned you. I'm going to say a bad word, but we got our stuff together.
Yeah.
Only it wasn't stuff. It was another word that starts with an S.
Yeah. Well, the crazy thing is when I'm standing next to him and he says, I mean, I know I probably shouldn't say it like this, or he said something like that. I probably shouldn't say it like this. And I was like, no, he's not going to say it. He's not going to say it. And then he actually says it. And I'm just, I didn't know. I was just kind of, I was stuck. I didn't know what to do when I had heard that. And so I pretty much, and then I think I had warned him something about, I had made a joke or something about a fine from the league. And he was like, really? And I didn't. And then he ended up getting the winner in overtime, which was the next time I interviewed him. It might have actually been the next game they had at Jersey Shore Arena, if I could be wrong. And what he did after that, or, there was the Matt Belinsky, there was the adult beverage reference. And there was that one too. So regardless, these guys are still solid players. So
who's one of the best guys to talk to when you're not on the mic, where the play is going on? Because usually I bring you in between whistles. So when the play is going on, was there a specific player who you really enjoy talking to?
Well, I mean, it's usually the goaltenders, because the goaltenders are usually in the penalty box. That's one thing I will say. If you are an 87 for the P team this past year, they rarely put the goaltender in the penalty box. He was usually the backup goaltender in the penalty box. He was usually on the bench. And the EHL team this year, who ended up winning the championship, and the EHLP team, who won the championship the year before, as well as the EHL team, put their goaltender in the penalty box. They had won the year before. They didn't win this year. So I still don't understand that. Besides, I love the camaraderie. So yeah, it's fun. Usually the backup goaltender, at least for that any given day, the 87s have a very deep goaltending roster and have had it at the P level, the EHL level, for the entire time I've been there. But I think one of the more exciting guys, even though he very well at times, he was kind of splitting duties, was Matt Sales. Matt Sales, that's how deep the goaltending was, that Matt Sales ended up with Pro Tech near the end of the year, but that they had John Kopak and Jeremy Connor. And so Matt Sales was a very nice guy, and he would just feed me info pretty much a lot of the time. One of the coolest things was I noticed he was from Milton, Georgia. And I figured, okay, Georgia, that's, it's kind of interesting. I know a little bit about Georgia, but we eventually got to talking about the Atlanta Thrashers, because I noticed he pretty much said he was about an hour outside of Atlanta. And then he said, and I went on the air with this, that he was at the last Atlanta Thrashers game, which is something crazy. He would have had to have been like 8 or 9, I would think, when that happened. And they left and went up to Winnipeg, which greatly deserved a team again. But that was just something fascinating that we could bring to the middle of play.
What about in terms of watching the on ice play from that vantage point? Is there anything that you remember, or any part of the game that kind of sticks out to you when you're at that angle?
I would say, I mean, you get so many. It's an interesting view. You can get a better view depending on. Okay. So from your angle, you get a better view of a shot probably if it's coming from the far boards if it's at the left point on your right, or if it's at the right point on your left. So one of the best examples of that, I would say, was this year in the EHLP playoffs, when the Little Flyers made their huge comeback in game 2 in Wall. They were down 3-0 late in the first, and Nicholas McKay scores a goal to cut it to 3-1. But it's funny because I had noticed that, and it was before the end of the first too, so it really got them back in it. But it was honestly it was a weak shot. it was a weak shot that I think hit somebody in the shoulder. I think hit an 87. I don't remember. And I don't think who would have been would it have been Jason Larico, I think, did not see the puck. He was screened very easily. That puck just went bar down. I don't even know if you could hear the clink actually, but that puck barely snuck in. And it's a view you only would have been able to have from where I am normally in that penalty box. So that was a very interesting thing. Also, it's the one place where you can get a stick in the chest, and it kind of opens your shirt a little bit. That was fun. And what was there was another one, I think, when we had to do games in Aston, I think, or I think it was Aston. Yeah, it was in Westchester, in the height of the pandemic, where they weren't letting you play in New Jersey, so we had to bus into Westchester. I think it was, and it was my fault really, but Kei Yasuda takes the eventual scoring title champion in the league that year, picks up his skate and fortunately gets me with a top, but still it's so heavy. It's the top part of his skate that just gets me under the elbow and really just kind of kicked out. And he said, I'm sorry. And it wasn't his fault, but that one hurt. That one very much hurt, I thought. And plus there was one time the puck was going my way. I reach up with my notebook to knock it down, and you see a black mark on the paper, on that white paper, the shape and size of a puck. That was
I kind of regret not pulling a doc there and say that Chris waffle boarded that one away, because that would have been the perfect use for that term.
Waffle board or blocker. Yeah, that would have been a good one.
But in addition to working with the 87s, the other thing too is that you've been helping out too with the EHL Frozen Finals, which I think is just a testament of, you could give credit to WSOU. We both worked there. You can say that they certainly taught us well, but I think it's also a testament to your work that you've been doing ringside for the past two Frozen Finals, the 2021 Frozen Finals in Westchester, and then this past spring in Providence.
Yeah, well, I think, again, you know what, again, I do attest that to WSOU in part because I genuinely think it is the best college radio station in the country, and they developed us so well, and obviously well enough to a point where you build things from the ground up. The 87s built things from the ground up. They brought you in, and then you brought me in. In turn, they hire the right people. It's the same thing with Seton Hall. It's the same thing with WSOU, and so that worked very well. But then it's also because of Adam and Matt and all of these people within the organization finding that this was kind of a niche thing that we could do, the rinkside thing that not many teams, if any, I think, were doing this in the EHL.
And Chris, with all these experiences, this is something that kind of happened to me in 2016 when I went from Seton Hall to with the Titans of the North American Hockey League. Now you've had just about 2 seasons under your belt with the 87s, going from college athletics, at a college radio station to going out there in the broadcasting industry, covering a junior hockey team. What are some of the things and lessons that you've sort of taken in stride?
Well, I think I've learned, or at least gotten an idea of how to build something great from the bottom up, to have a familial environment in a workspace. And I saw that at WSOU, where we were a very, very tight-knit group. I wanted to be the best times I had at Seton Hall. I was at just hanging out at WSOU. That's at least outside the classroom, best things I could have done. And working with the 87s, I think working with you and just being able to talk for the hour 10 or whatever the drive we go on, me just rambling about stupid stuff, probably ruining my voice, doing Norm Macdonald impressions and just quoting stuff from John Mulaney, et cetera, Family Guy, whatever. That is just a blessing. And I think sitting in the coach's office between periods, watching them, watching some of the coaches, whether it be Adam Hooley or Matt Kiernan or Connell McNeilis or whatever, looking at what could be a bad call and just kind of dissecting it, just talking trash. Well, maybe not talking trash, whatever. Hearing guys talk trash to each other while chirping. Just to really learn how to enjoy myself too, and much like I did at WSOU, enjoying travel, enjoying different experiences, even though I only really do the home games for the 87s. But, I got to travel at WSOU, and then here I've been able to travel to Providence, to Westchester, which may not seem like the most exotic places. It's not Tahiti, but I always found them very interesting, and finding the cool spots in different places, meeting new people. We talk to parents of 87's kids, or even to parents of other kids when we do stuff for the Frozen Finals, and they're just lovely people with generally just not very nice things to say. I think I've gotten better as a broadcaster in my time here. I think I'll continue to grow. I would say the same for you, even though you're further ahead in your journey. That sounds kind of cliched, but that's those are a few of the things that I've learned in my time with the 87s and with the Eastern Hockey League.
Yeah, and I'm glad you brought up the parents too, because they have been so wonderful. And the other thing too, I think anytime there's a new broadcaster, and not just for junior hockey, not just for the 87s or whatnot, this goes for all levels. I feel like there's often a period where fans have to get used to the broadcaster if they're so used to and it's not like I left, but the fact that the parents have also welcomed you as one of their own. And even when you're not around, some of the parents will say, oh, Chris does such a fantastic job, because you really have added a lot to the broadcast. And one thing I want the fans to know is that even though you would come into Seton Hall after I had left, since you've come onto the broadcast, it honestly just feels like an extension of working at WSOU, where it kind of brings me back to my college days, where we always have that 1-2, broadcast or play-by-play color commentator. And I think that's made working junior hockey that much more fun. I guess for the fans, if you're wondering why we're bringing up Seton Hall so much, there is a bit of a pipeline when it comes to broadcasters to this team.
Well, not to mention, you're going to see these people. Not all of these people do on-air stuff. A lot of people have gone into different stuff, but you're going to see a lot of these people in the future because of how well they did it. What you're going to see, I'm telling you, you're going to see some of what they did at Seton Hall, where you saw people from, Fordham and Syracuse for so many. I mean, Seton Hall's had some people like Bob Lee and Dick Vitale and others, but you're going to see that from like the way they did it at Fordham or at Syracuse or maybe Michigan or something like that. And you will see that from Seton Hall even more so.
But bringing this back to the 87s, I mean, Chris, again, it's been so great working with you, being able to call you a broadcast partner. And I look forward to more games where we work together, and I'm sure the fans look forward to that too. And the 2022-2023 season should be a fun one.
Yeah, I'm thrilled. It's going to be really exciting. I think to see another banner for the 87s up there, to see an EHL championship banner up there after just 4 seasons for the EHL program and a pandemic, and getting to the Frozen Finals in multiple ways really in 2021. So that's going to be thrilling, but just trying to find more to do, and that continues to drive us. That's going to be a really thrilling thing. And maybe, you never know, although this might be a jinx for the 87s, maybe they finally take down that banner that says New Jersey Devils 2019-2020 season.
I don't know. They won a champion. Disclaimer: I'm a Devils fan, but considering they won a championship, you can't change that now.
Yeah, I guess it's nothing to do with the team. It's just the year. I am such I'm a stickler, man. I don't know. If there was a misspelling on one of those banners, I would go berserk. So
all right, well, that wraps up this week's episode of Inside the 87s. We'll have Chris back on next week. We'll be co-hosting. We'll try to bring on some guests from the team throughout the coming weeks. And we thank you again for tuning in here on Inside the 87s.